So talk about seagulls stopping you from like venturing outside the boundaries that the game developers have set for you. So when I was in Wales, God, it was like nearly 2 years ago now. We normally go camping every year, me and some friends.
This isn't the photo shoot we did in London, though.
No. That was a different thing with a different car, right? I'm not going to get into that. But quite similar in the sense that, so we were camping at Blackrock Sands. Beautiful place, right? It was the last night of the camping weekend. And I went to go get some beers and some snacks out of the boot of my car. Went into the boot, put my phone down, put my keys down, rummaging around, seeing what I wanted. Grabbed a big box of booze and some snacks, piled it on top, closed the boot with my elbow, turned around, realised what I'd done, turned back around, beep, the boot was locked. With my wallet, my phone was in my pocket luckily, but with my wallet, with my keys, right? What the fuck?
Nightmare.
Instantly started Googling how to unlock the boot without the key. And there were tutorials telling me I need to thread my hand behind the springs of the left rear tire and then pull this metal wire. I couldn't find the metal wire. The next morning, all my friends were leaving the campsite going home because they had to get to work and shit, and so did I. And I'm ringing my boss up like, oh shit, I'm kind of stranded in Wales, nothing I can do. I rang up, what did I do? I rang up locksmiths and the dealership of my car manufacturer, and I rang up my insurance, and all of them said, it's not worth it. If we tried to get in the car, it would trip the immobilizer, you wouldn't be able to drive it off the field, you'd be stuck there, right?
I mean, to be fair, that's quality security features.
Yeah, 100%, which is fine if you're in a civilized part of the world. But I mean, the nearest town was an hour-and-a-half walk away in any direction, right?
Okay, now.
I was between Portmadog and Cricketh, okay? Really, really nice. Portmadog's quite big. It's small, but it's bigger than Cricketh, okay? They're both quite touristy.
Yeah.
Anyway, my friends, they're all fucking off. They're all driving away. They've got shit to do with their lives. And I'm like, all right. So they leave me a pop-up tent and they leave me a battery bank.
That was kind of them.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm just there like, okay, how am I going to get home? It's pointless if my friends drive me back to my house in Manchester because I've not got the house key. My housemate at the time, Henry, he was at the time doing some freelance work down south in London, so he wasn't going to be back until the day after. So that was pointless. So I'm just like,
if I recall correctly, he drove back from London.
The day after, yeah.
Yeah, and he got your spare key and then drove straight over to Wales.
Yeah. So from London to Manchester, turned around, back down to Wales. The man's a fucking legend. I'm going to just mention it on this podcast. Henry, what a guy, right? And he even brought his dog with him. So when he came to my rescue, and I'm just literally sat in my tent just waiting, right? Just waiting for recovery. So he came back, we walked the dog, it was great, drove back, fantastic. But the reason why I mention it is because I had to spend a night in this tent on my own. So obviously, what do? You're on your own. Some people can't deal with being on their own. But I'll tell you something though, mate. It was a very nice experience because it was like a forced extended holiday. That Monday evening, it was a bank holiday. The Monday evening, I walked over to Cricketh. It took me an hour and a half. I just, sat on a bench for a couple hours and watched the sunset. Earlier that day, I went walking around this castle. There was this old guy, I forget his name, but he was on his own because he was waiting for his, niece to finish work or something, and he'd gone to see her for the day. So he took me around the castle for this little tour. He had a bit of history. The day after, I went to... Oh, no, that's also what happened. Whilst in Cricketh, I went to a cafe just so that I could get on the free Wi-Fi, download some films, because what am I supposed to do on my own? I walked home... to the tent, and it was getting dark, and I was climbing over these rocks. This is, the seagull story that you mentioned reminded me of this. There were no seagulls, but there were some sheep, and they were looking at me, and they gave me some fucking bad looks. Oh. They were not happy, and I'm just like, what are they going to do to sheep? But I mean, I was still scared for my life, honestly.
They knew you weren't native.
I wasn't meant to be there.
You didn't serenade them enough.
No, I was wearing clothes. What are you suggesting here? But, these experiences shape who you are. And you know what? It was for the first 4 hours of the 29 hours that I was stranded on my own, waiting for Henry to come and pick me up. Like, for the first 4 hours, I was a bit worried. I was a bit concerned. I was like, oh, this hasn't gone to plan. But then things change. You kind of accept your fate, and then you learn to make the most of it. And I tell you what, mate, I had a great time.
I remember when